In mid-September this year, scenes of chaos unfolded at an overcrowded reception center in Lampedusa. Thousands of migrants and refugees landed on the Italian island after crossing the Mediterranean Sea on small boats from Tunisia, overwhelming local authorities and aid organizations. More than 120 small boats arrived in Lampedusa, bringing the number of people at the local reception center to over 7,000 people at one point. That's more than the island's population. Aboard the boats that arrived in Lampedusa from Tunisia are citizens of various African nations: Ivory Coast, Guinea, Cameroon, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Tunisians. Many lived and worked in Tunisia for years before deciding to set off to Europe.
It
is certain that good weather could encourage the arrival of other people. We are preparing ourselves and are preparing additional kits and additional food so that we don't find ourselves caught off guard during new arrivals.
Well, here again, the European Union has showed their real face in the last couple of years, which was not in solidarity. It was clearly against migration. So, for example, also the border agency Frontex has gained the capacities to a limit. NGOs were being blocked. There are still no European sea rescue mission in place.
Due to its geographical position, the island of Lampedusa between Tunisia and Italy has become a hotspot for migrants wanting to access Europe. It has been seen as a symbol of the lack of solidarity of the European Union, or EU, and its members, reigniting tensions within the bloc and providing impetus to work for a fresh common strategy.
It is very important for me because irregular migration is a European challenge and it needs a European answer. So we are in this together.
So, on the 29th of September 2023, the leaders of 9 Mediterranean and Southern European countries, including France's Emmanuel Macron and Italy's Giorgia Meloni, met in Malta to discuss the pressing issues of migration and the need to tackle it at its roots and transit countries.
The situation we've been experiencing for several months and the exceptional scale of the Lampedusa crisis clearly calls for a united European response and requires all of us to show solidarity with Italy. We must also show solidarity with all countries of first entry. Like when Greece or Spain are affected, we must show the same solidarity.
The EU is poised to agree to a revamped pact on migration and asylum, which will seek to relieve pressure on frontline countries such as Italy and Greece by relocating some arrivals to other EU states. So, who is a migrant? Is there a difference between migrants and refugees? What is the migration crisis plaguing parts of Europe and the United States? And how should it be addressed? Let's find out. Millions are on the move all year long. Conflicts, persecution, and poverty are creating more refugees than the world has seen in decades. The difference between a migrant and a refugee marks a crucial distinction for European countries receiving new arrivals. Refugees are people who have fled war, violence, conflict, or persecution and have crossed an international border to find safety in another country. They often have had to flee with little more than the clothes on their back, leaving behind homes, possessions, jobs, and loved ones. Syrians are a prime example. Refugees, under the 1951 Refugee Convention, are entitled to basic rights under international law, including the right not to be immediately deported and sent back. A migrant, however, is someone who chooses to resettle to another country in search of a better life. Not all migrants are refugees, but refugees can fall under the migrant umbrella. For example, those fleeing poverty in Nigeria looking for work in Europe would not have refugee status, but would be considered migrants. Are migrants then processed under the receiving country's immigration laws, and how does it work?
So, depending on if you're in the United States or in Europe, in the United States, the federal government handles all of this. You enter the United States and you can basically move wherever you want in the United States once you get that asylum permission to enter through asylum. You get your work permit. That work permit is for any state you want to work. In Europe, the people are, basically where you land is where you try to stay. But what a lot of asylum seekers try to do is forum shop because it might be a little bit easier to get around the formula and the process within certain European countries, right? And so you might want to say, hey, you know what, things are really crowded right now in Italy. I'm going to try my luck in Germany or Luxembourg because it's a little bit of an easier process. And so in Europe, there is a framework for immigration, but some countries it's going to be a little bit easier to process than other countries.